I'm basically like getting your eyes crossed from doing it all the time.
Bouncing around on the screen. Follow the bouncing ball.
Yep,
Well,
exactly.
we're live. It's Let's Talk About Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Christine. That's some fun today. Another one of these deep topics we'll expose the people.
Yeah. So, are you afraid of commitment, or is it them? I love the title.
Or is it you?
Oh, are your dates afraid of commitment, or is it you? One or the other.
Bottom line,
Either way.
we're talking about the issues of commitment, period.
Period.
Yes.
And why you're not committing while they're not committing, because I think that this is one of those subjects that probably has equal amounts subconscious and conscious reasons, don't you think?
And yes, and of course, as the title says, sometimes it's about us, sometimes it's about them. But the truth is, it definitely has layers on it. We can definitely will expose and understand some of those things, so that people can go, "Oh, I can fix that."
That's always our goal, is that we can help people become conscious about, oh, that's why maybe that's happening or not happening, and that you have control over it. You have control over why it's happening or not, and you have control over it having the opposite. Whatever it is you'd like to be happening, you have control over it. Absolutely. And commitment, boy, I imagine you hear it a lot. I hear it a lot. You know, they never want to make a commitment. You know, I don't meet people that want to make a commitment. They just want casual relations. They just want casual sex. I hear that a lot.
Oh, commitmentphobia is the thing people use all the terms. And there's a lot of people where they'll continually stay on the surface level and they'll keep bailing. So yeah, it does go around, and even now. I mean, I'm not sure. I've not done any checking on research or anything, but it seems like now with all the stuff with the lockdowns and everything going with quarantine, I'm not sure if people are more commitment phobic or less commitment phobic, more commitment intended. Who knows?
It's been an interesting conversation to have with people. And I did a little teeny bit of extra asking of the people that I've talked to since we came up with this topic. And what's been fun is to hear them really think about it now. You know, so are you looking for a commitment? Mm-hmm. And I've gotten lots of, I don't knows. I don't know. Well, why aren't you looking for a commitment? I don't know. Well, that might be a really good thing to ask. And it made me think about when I was newly single from my divorce. And I had mentioned that I hadn't really dated much when I first met my divorced husband. And then we were married for 13 years and it was very tumultuous. And I was still only 31 when I got divorced. So initially, I really got that I just wanted to date. Mm-hmm. And then when I think back, because I wasn't conscious of it at all, I really kept dating men that I wouldn't marry because I didn't know how to attract. I didn't know this consciously at all. But when I look back, I realized I didn't want to marry somebody like I had married before. And I had no roadmap of how to do it differently. Yep. So at least I didn't marry any of the people that would have been like him or so wrong for me. So now Sammy's not even pushing on the computer, but he's pushing on what it's sitting on, which is why we're having this small earthquake here. So
hi, Sammy.
Yes, here he comes. We said he always has to show up because Barry's voice is here. He likes being on camera. He's so not camera shy.
I'm glad I have one fan at least.
It's your animal magnetism, Mr. Selby. So when I was so interesting how long I went not realizing that I would, and I think about the guys that I sent away because they wanted to make a commitment. And a couple of them, not a lot, but a couple of them really would have been good guys. They would have been good people for me to be in a relationship with for a long term. But they couldn't get in because I still had this belief that I would only be with somebody that was wrong for me. And I couldn't make a commitment to the wrong people. But it certainly, I realized later, kept me from making a commitment to the right people. Duh.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems so basic now, but it was so way back here then.
I mean, hindsight is 2020. Of course, last year's going, that was hindsight, not so much. But for me, definitely for my growing years, but during my 20s especially, my dating life was highlight's not the right word. it was marked very clearly by fear of commitment. And for me, what the wiring was, I think a lot of men go through this. I'm suspecting, I'm not sure it's true, but I think so. Is that through most of my dating in my 20s, I would be with somebody for a period of time, and then I would bail because my fear of commitment was there's something better out there. I was caught up in the syndrome of, because once I got to know this woman enough to know, let's make it not perfect here, because I had something about perfection in my wiring, because, my history. Anyway, so the wiring is like, if she wasn't the perfect match, like she didn't check all the boxes, I should go next, and keep doing that. And so my commitment fear was that I would settle for the wrong one, that I wouldn't have the one I really wanted. And it's like, and the fear was basically, if I said yes to this one, the real perfect one would show up over there. So,
yes.
Hi, Sammy.
Hello, Barry. Yes, and I think mine was, they'll all be bad. They'll all be like the first one. So why would I want to make a commitment, right?
Yeah.
So there we had such opposite reasons for doing the very same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Over and over and over. I know. I
many times.
Yeah, I know. I feel like, I've never been through a 12-step program, but what I understand, one of the things you do is you go and apologize people that you've done wrong in the past. And I certainly have a few people that I thought, gosh, I wasn't very nice to them, and they were really nice to me because I didn't know better.
Mm-hmm. I've done sort of the equivalent of making amends, which is what the step is in 12 step, as far as I remember. I'm not a 12-step participant, but the thing for me was during my graduate program was a lot of healing of those sort of historical things that would clear us from the blocks of what we wanted to have. And looking back and seeing how many opportunities I missed and fear that was driving me, because it was fear-based. I was realizing that I'd suffered the loss of possibility there. And secondly, I had really shortchanged these ladies the possibility of being in healthy relationships. I wasn't being healthy with them.
Yes.
So that was one of the things I had to do, was do a lot of healing and self-forgiveness and making peace with what had happened, because it was blocking me from moving forward.
Oh, the forgiving ourselves. Oh, yeah. I had to do a lot of that. But I just didn't know any better. I really didn't. And it was such an eye-opener to figure it out when I was like, oh, holy crap. Look what I've passed up. Look how stuck I was. Look at the old messages that I had for good reason. I mean, I didn't make them up. I just didn't realize how insidious they were and how important it was to process them so that I could move on.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. We don't get educated on this. I didn't get any. I mean, actually, just to add more kindling to the fire. In my upbringing, because my parents were like solid partnership from the get-go. When I was, obviously when I was born, they were together. But my parents were together until my mum passed away in 2012. So that was 60 years. And to see that model in front of me, and I would say it's effortless in the sense that there wasn't any like major things happening. It's just they were together. And so I always had that model that I had to compare against, and I always came up short. So I always had this impossible goal, so to speak, because and it wasn't the fact that my parents were so perfect. It's more about the fact is that I'm not sure I would have been happy with something they had.
Yeah.
But I didn't understand at the time that's what was in the way, of course, because the innocence of youth.
And isn't that an interesting dichotomy, that we strive for something that's perfection out there, and it wouldn't be perfection for us? Isn't that, so often? And I think that sometimes the fear of commitment is, one, could I do it right? Am I really capable of doing it right? Right enough, good enough, perfect enough? Or then am I enough? I don't, do I qualify? Am I smart enough, skinny enough, tall enough, whatever enough to even qualify for something that somebody would want to make a commitment to me? So much I think of my personal fear of commitment, and the people that I attracted that truly were not interested in commitment was because I had all this doubt inside of me.
Yeah.
And I think I attracted people that had big doubts too. And I think it's really smart if you don't get married if you have big doubts about yourself and the relationship.
Well, that's also one of the keys you mentioned there, is the fact that because you had great doubts, you'd attract. It's almost like the magnetism of like attracting like, in a sense, which is not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
So the doubt attracting doubt, it's kind of a clue that there was something amiss there.
But I didn't know it. I didn't know it at the time. It's so clear. No, I don't ever want to go back.
If we knew then what we know now.
Yeah. And lucky that we know it now, right? So we can do better now, and we can teach people. But oh yeah. Yeah, it was stumble along in the dark is how it feels now when I look back. It was fun. I certainly had fun. And the thing is too, that because of my fear of making a commitment to the wrong person again, I would keep my heart guarded. So one of the things I was really smug about was I very seldom got my heart broken because I didn't dare, I didn't risk, I didn't have a means of feeling open, because you can't make a commitment if you're not open and receptive, both people.
Right.
And there was no way. I had so many walls up and guards up, and I looked really fun. I looked really available, but I really wasn't at all.
Oh, that difference of perception and reality. Yeah.
So when I talk to people that have experienced a lot of people coming into their life that they say are commitment phobic and avoid commitment, I do some digging into, well, what's commitment to you, and what have you done in the past, and how has commitment been positive and negative, to see what old messages are percolating back there. Because as much as we think we know what we need and want in our life, it is driven by these old messages. I am completely 100% convinced about that, as you are.
Absolutely, yeah.
People are amazed at that. You know, the client I was talking to today, she has really good lists about what she wants. And she had a pretty good profile. We really need to do some work on it. And yet when you see who's showing up, it's like, it's her dad, it's her late husband. It's so not what is on that list. It's not what's on the list.
Yeah.
Even though she clearly can articulate it, but it's not what she thinks is how the world is in the back of her mind.
Well, and that's the thing, is that we have that ability, and talking to one of my clients this morning too, is the fact that having a look back and see the common threads is one of the biggest clues that we get. I mean, that was one of the lessons I had to learn. So of course I do it with my clients.
Yes.
Is seeing the fact that the last two marriages, even though the men, the ex-husbands, look so different, the result, the energetic, the behavior, the interactions, the pain was the same in both relationships. And so it's like, okay, so let's see where that goes back to, which usually, as you said, is father, parents, something in the family dynamic that's being exacerbated out now. Yeah. No wonder the commitment should show up, because they're like, I don't want to go there again. It's like, no, you don't, but let's change it and heal that wiring, or I should say rewire that wiring, reframe that programming.
Yeah.
So you're no longer carrying that baggage into your next relationship. So then when you do commit, and you choose to commit, it comes from a much more whole, healthy, and free place.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Because we keep going down that well-trodden path that doesn't serve us, because it's comfortable, it's familiar, it doesn't feel scary.
It's easy.
It's really easy to just go down the same path. Really easy. You don't have to think much.
Thinking about this? What do you mean thinking about this?
And shouldn't it just happen? It should just magically happen, that the right person just shows up and everything is peachy keen. And that's the hard thing too, when I've had a fun time on my Facebook page, that if I see people that are now in a committed relationship, they've probably met through one of the widow Facebook pages or on online dating, and they're in, a real committed relationship that's been going on for a while, I'll ask them if I can share their story. So they'll write up their story for me. A lot of times it's anonymous. And I said, please talk about the hard part too. Because, what you're seeing on Facebook is the truth. Right. Everything's lovely and they're getting along. And yeah, we're hoping that's happening a lot of the time. It's not how the whole story is, because people are like, Well, look at how it is for them. Yeah, that's not the whole story.
Right.
So
Oh.
I get them to tell the whole story, you know, the ups and downs, the hard things that happened, the work that they did ahead of time, the work they've done together, you know, not like a big like log psychological thing, but I want them to have the real nitty gritty.
Absolutely.
It's a false narrative that people are reading if they only see everything's peachy keen right now.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like having the other shoe drop, so to speak. It's like the recognition is like it's not the whole picture. So it's a great thing you're doing, because it is showing people that you can have the good, and there's still this that was in the way of that, or part of the work to get through.
Yes.
It's so, I mean, this thing, and I think we said this before, I think, in another conversation about how when we do this work and we're doing the growth, it's like we look at our lows and recognize that our lows are actually higher than our old highs were. So even though you are going through lows, they're much better than they were before. So ideally, when you're doing this work, especially working with us too, the journey we're going through, where our valleys, so to speak, are actually higher than our mountains used to be. So we're still doing much higher and higher work. So the great news is this is not the same thing again and again, and you're not going worse and worse.
No.
You may be feeling deeper than you were before, because that's part of the joy of opening up as you go deeper in the heat feeling. But the reality is that and say it's not the pain isn't the word I was going to use, but the digging out, the clearing out, the crucible, let's put it that way, of the stuff that's in the way has more feeling to it, but it's at, again, a higher level because you've chosen to do the work. And so it's not going to be the same thing again and again. No. It's just higher and higher levels. It's the journey we go through. So that's the joy and the challenge of this work.
Very much. Very much. Because you and I know that digging in and clearing out, there is nothing fun about it. It's hard, it's challenging, and it's beyond rewarding for them.
That's the key.
For us.
Yeah.
When you get to the other side, if you just do one little thing, that's what I always want to just start out with, one little thing, and you see, yeah, that was kind of uncomfortable, and wow, it wasn't very much fun, and wow, look at the benefit, because usually the benefit is way better.
Oh, absolutely.
Than what challenges you went through, even though the challenge feels hard at the time. But that's when you're like, okay, I'm ready. Bring it on. Because I'm like, the next might be a little harder. And then think of the reward you get after doing something that's a little harder, even though it feels really yucky in the middle. But what's the best news I have and the best news, because part of it, is that you have us walking beside you the whole time.
Right.
You're not going to crash and burn. You're not going to fall apart. We're there as close as a text. You know, I let my clients text me if they're in the middle of a hard thing. I let them have emergency conversations with me if they're, you know, I have the time. So the hard things that they've tried before, because most people have tried something.
Yeah. And
it didn't really work, and they felt maybe worse or certainly not any better. There's another thing. Can you make a commitment to coaching? Can you make a commitment to healing? Can you make a commitment to clearing it out if you've had bad experiences before? Because always, I mean, I've had lots of therapy in my life, and in the middle, I'm like, whose idea was this? Oh my God, you know, they should be shot. I can't believe how awful this is. And why did I even want to look at this? This is really hard. And always, 100% of the time on the other side, it's like, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I feel lighter. I feel hopeful. I feel more productive and excited and grounded in my next choices because I got rid of the old shit.
And on top of that, you get to have more of yourself integrated. You feel like you're more whole yourself and feel like you come home to yourself in a way. Well, that's what I've experienced, and my clients do too. And that's the joy of this work, is that recognition that the light on the other side is much more worthwhile than the darkness, what you're going through to get there.
Yes.
And for my journey through the years and years of work, through seminars and through my graduate work, was so deeply transformational that at times I was like, am I sure about this? No.
Yeah. No.
But they are. So I trust them to do it, my clients. But the other part of that, which is and whereas what we didn't put in the title is, are we afraid of committing to yourself? Very
much. Oh, yes.
Big question.
So important. Yes. Do you feel like you could trust yourself to make a commitment to whatever it is the next up-leveling you want to be on yourself? Do you trust that you would be able to stick with it? Do you trust that you could make a commitment to, wow, it might be scary to be better, because then what am I going to have to live up to in my mind or other people's minds? I mean, that really is part of making a commitment to something. I told you I've been taking this college class, geez, and I am sticking with it because I made this commitment.
Yeah.
Because this is the part where I do with my clients. I go, let's look at, because in the middle of the crap, there's still some good things that are happening. So I love everything I'm reading, all the videos, all the articles, and then the mechanical parts of these 5 different places I have to click on to do stuff in a week before I get to the end of the homework. And then, oh my God, I have to start this all over again, is equally hard, equally as hard as this is amazing and rewarding. So I used that even with a couple of clients lately, because I said, I know the hard, I get the hard. And yet pretty fast, I know you've said this too, they start just a little. Let's appreciate the little glimmer, because then it turns into a whole flame, and then it's just amazing.
Oh,
yeah.
I mean, I've been on this sort of thing. I mean, I've been on this journey for, well, 84 is when I started this journey. So I've had this willingness to commit to things outside my frame of reference or possibility or even understanding for many years, thankfully. But it's interesting how that commitment thing shows up as a challenge in some areas, but doesn't in other areas.
I know.
It's funny because right now I'm in the process of car shopping, and I'm very clear about what car model I'm looking for. Yet within that, I'm still like, there's a challenge of committing to certain things that I'm like, if I do that, will I give up this? If I get this, this thing. So it shows up in the most in interesting places.
Yes. Oh,
and
yeah.
Relationship, of course, is the most profound place for it to show up, to have that challenge.
Very much. Yes. And that was the other part that I was thinking about when I had all those walls and all those blocks. I wanted to keep my heart safe. It kept my heart safe.
Yep.
There was no in and out. There was no way for any flow. Even to go, wow, yeah, that really isn't the right person. And I see why it's the right person. I just did a lot of staticky stuff. Or, wow, that could be a really great friendship, or that could have been a love interest. But there was just a big wall.
Yeah.
It was all very surfacey. You can't go deep if you have a wall. And you can't make a commitment to yourself if you won't go deep. And you certainly can't make a commitment to a coach if you won't go deep. And you're not going to make a commitment in a relationship if you're not going to go deep, unless you want to be with somebody shallow. And that's not really much of a commitment. I guess you could have a commitment to be shallow.
If that was the choice, so you're having a commit to someone who's that shallow, you probably won't be watching the show anyway.
They'd be like, what are those people talking about? I'm not interested.
Alien language to them. Yeah.
It doesn't fit me. If this fits you and you think you'd like to have a commitment with somebody and it's not happening, then after the break, we're going to talk about how you can get past this with yourself, make a commitment to yourself,
yes,
to get some support and help, and then commitment from another person. How about that?
Sounds like a deal.
A good rest of the conversation for our show? Okay, we're off to a break. We'll be right back.
See you soon.
And we're back.
That was quick.
I know. So they're very jazzy and colorful.
Indeed, yes.
So, talking about making a commitment. Oh, hi. Making a commitment to each other, to yourself, and can you make a commitment to another person? And if you're not meeting people that want to make a commitment, how to do that?
Yes.
That's the challenge.
And sometimes the biggest piece we have, or should I say one of the biggest things, maybe just me, is that commitment meant permanence.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've become aware of, and some years ago in the journey I was doing, was being able to commit in the moment to the moment.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about long-term relationship as part of our focus. A lot of times what we're afraid of doing is committing to anything in the moment, because there's something about committing that is a fear of not being able to choose out of something. So it could be like, you're going to commit to going for an hour's walk in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's like, I mean, this is simplistic on a simple level to make how, for that level of commitment, it's something that some people aren't willing to make. Like, I'm going to commit to going to the gym 5 days this week, which is a big step for a lot of people to come that far. But if you start building, it's almost like flexing, training a muscle. In what sense? It's building commitment as a progressive skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, it is a basic level of how agreements work, and I've had a whole conversation about that in other times. But recognizing that when you can start building commitment, it's not so scary anymore. You start to become okay saying, I can't commit to things. So let me start understanding why the commitment to the big stuff is more challenging.
Yes. Yes, very much. And it's like developing an emotional muscle. You try something new and see how it goes. And it's important to make a commitment to doing it for a certain amount of time. You can stop doing it after a certain amount of time. And it's really important to commit, even if you don't like the thing, to make an agreement with yourself that I'm committing to doing this for a week or 2 weeks or a month, and see, does it become a comfortable habit? Nope. Do you need to tweak it? Or is it something that's not working at all? So like, you talk about the walk that I've discovered all these, like, I don't like doing videos by myself. I just love having another person there to chat with. This is like 100% fun for me. It was 100% dread when I did one by myself. Mm-hmm. So I stopped doing them by myself. You are the most comfortable person doing it. I watch you in awe because it is so comfortable for me. So I discovered, you're welcome. It's such a gene I don't have, as much as I like to talk. So I discovered that I walk generally 3 to 4 days a week, because I do horse stuff 3 days a week and I don't need to do any extra exercise. I do a lot of exercise with that. So one of the 4 times I will go by myself. And the other times I arrange for somebody that I haven't talked to for a while. We're going to have a nice chat and I take them on the walk with me. Because some people tell me they'd much rather walk quiet. They want to listen to music or they just want to contemplate. Not jabbery me. I prefer to take somebody with me, even if they're in a whole nother state and we're on the phone. So that's what I learned about me, and it works best for me for my exercise. When I do my yoga, so I am going to tell you, when I do my yoga in my house, it's on my laptop. I have either the radio on, or I turn on talk radio, or I turn on a movie, because I know the moves. I look and I'm right on the thing I'm supposed to be doing. And it's really good exercise. And I can't just do that. I like having something else. That's me. So if somebody said, well, you have to do this, just paying attention to that, that would be wrong for me. So I'd have trouble making a commitment to doing, because I do that 6 days a week. I would dread it. I wouldn't want to do it because wasn't my way. So that's the other thing, that if you think of how you work best as a person when you make a commitment to yourself, and if you can't come up with it, we can come up with lots of different suggestions of, let's try this, go do that for a week and see, does that feel better? Right. Because once you've learned you open the manual of you, and this is how you work best to exercise, then you can use that same tool for the next phase of commitment that might feel a little more scary, like a relationship.
Sneaky. But it's true, yeah. But the other thing, but sometimes it's always good to ask questions. And one of the things that I really love doing with my clients is when they say they have a certain fear or a certain challenge or it doesn't work and what it is. And I ask them, like, what about that? Like, for example, is like, if you're afraid of commitment, what would happen if you did commit? Because that was the lesson I had to learn, was like, what I was afraid of underneath that, as I said, and I'm not proud of it or ashamed of it, was I was afraid of making the wrong choice. And so I did the inner work to free that up so I can be clear now. And that's what's shifted my focus. So if you're afraid of a commitment to another person, what is it you're afraid is going to happen if you do commit? Because that can open up a whole report of what you may have believed about commitment, relationship, any of that stuff, or yourself even.
So essential.
Well, because for some of my clients, some people know it's like their fear of commitment is they're afraid of what they would then be like in that relationship with that person.
Yes.
It's not about the other person. They're about afraid of themselves. So we all have our stuff around commitment.
Yeah.
Very few people I think I know of that are actually saying commitment. Yeah, no problem. No, all straight into it.
No.
You know, commit to a life with a partner. It's like, are you asleep at the wheel? Have some choice. You want to have some level of selection criteria and intention. That's a whole other piece of the conversation.
Yes.
But the question then is, if you are afraid of commitment, what is it about that scares you?
Yes.
Because that's a really important question to learn. But if you answer that question, that'll give you a clue about what may be in the way of actually being able to commit.
Yes. And you touched on a really big thing when I asked that same question of my clients, of they've lost themselves in the past. And they don't want to lose themselves again, and they don't know how to not lose themselves. And who wants to feel like you've lost yourself? I wouldn't want to feel that way. So I wouldn't want to make a commitment if I thought that was the only way. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the thing, is that question I suggested is something that you definitely would do in the company of a coach.
Yeah.
Because what comes up next is like, well, then how do you deal with that? How do you deal with that in the steps? So having someone like you or me as their guide and their counsel to hold that safe space, it is a deep piece of work. I mean, it's funny talking about commitment. I mean, you know, my coaching, I've shifted my coaching client commitment is that my clients can commit to working with me for 6 months now, not 3 months. Because I see how deep we're going to go. And 3 months, unfortunately, is not enough for most clients.
No.
And so that's a 6-month commitment that is scary for a lot of people. And of course, I'm thinking, I got some new questions to ask these people before they sign up to work with me.
Yeah. Oh, yes, very much. Because we are very much into committing with our clients, and
Absolutely.
we see if they are willing as well. Yeah.
We're going to meet in the middle.
Very important. Very important. Yes, and holding that safe space. It was interesting because I've had a couple people come recently that had worked with somebody, 2 different other people, and they said that they never felt completely safe.
No.
I said, wow, I'm really sorry that happened. And I don't know that the other person wasn't a safe person in general. They certainly hadn't made these people feel safe. And it was wild to have 2 different people show up that had come from 2 other people who both said the same thing, and that they'd watched videos, and one of them came through another client and said, oh, I know I could feel safe with you. And I know that that's such a big thing for both you and I.
Absolutely.
And so we need to keep saying that with this deep exploration that we know that you're going to do in order to get to the other side of whatever dating challenge you're having, you'll need to feel very safe because it's vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's actually some of my favorite work to be with my clients, is because to see where they get to on the other side of that, when they finally get free of that challenge, that upset, that painful memory, whatever it is, their freedom and their joy, because the amount of darkness is reflective of how much joy there is on the other side of it.
Oh, yeah.
Is such a celebration and such, for me, a deep reverence for this work that makes it so much worthwhile for me. I mean, it's like clients who just want to do a little switch to get some things done. Great, no problem. But again, that's why I like working with clients for 6 months, because the journey we go through is so deep. They come out the other side with such a sense of wholeness and fulfillment that I feel like that's almost the best thing ever. It's such a great deep feeling to have that support, to be able to provide that for them.
Yeah, it really is. It's the thing that gets me up every day.
Yep.
Think, oh my gosh, the hope that they finally have. Because I think people run out of hope when they don't understand first what's causing them to not have a fulfilling relationship, and thinking they'll never figure it out. or there's never going to be somebody for them, or they're never going to be whoever it is for the other person. And I think just that hope piece, when I see them finally believing, not there yet, believing, yeah, it's such a pivotal point in the coaching experience I have found.
It is. And that for me is what makes this, I mean, in a way, I almost wish that we could teach this in schools.
Oh,
So
yeah.
we can save you a lot of time.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the reality for me is the fact that we get to do it now at any point in life. As you mentioned, it doesn't matter where we are. Once you get there, it's okay. Is to really see there's such a sense of value and also of honoring that comes through this work. And so I'm just grateful that I've finally got around to doing this work.
Me too.
Because that sidebars into the commitment piece for me in my own journey in relationships. It wasn't until I started discovering, for me as a man, about what purpose meant to me. I'd always put that on top of my partner, and I've learned, thankfully now in hindsight, how dysfunctional it was to make my partner my purpose, because it's not healthy.
Mm.
You know, it can be purpose from, and this is being a big topic, just more little package, but just to Cliff Notes version. When I started diving into the whole masculine family conversation back in 2007 and onwards for the last 14 years, I really got to understand how I had not known what my ability to function was. I'd always choose relationship as the highest pinnacle of everything in my life, not knowing that as a masculine man, which I now know what it is, having a purpose is higher than relationship. And not because it makes relationship weaker. What it is when I focus my energy on my purpose, my relationship becomes easier. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not putting that pressure on the relationship, and it can be much more fun, more joyful, more fulfilling. Yeah. And I didn't know that before, so I had messed up so many relationships prior to that because I kept looking for something in there that wasn't there.
Yeah.
So of course my commitment issues were up. So for any men watching this, if you're single now and haven't got a healthy relationship or haven't had a healthy relationship and you don't know what your purpose is, that could be the key. Mm-hmm. Is find out what your why is, and be clear. Your purpose is rarely about getting the best job and nice car and the big house. That's the side effects. Mm-hmm. The purpose is what drives you, that allows you to contribute to the world and open your heart in a way that is tangible and has impact. So that when you're in your relationship, you can go, I can enjoy myself in this partnership because I've got this happening in the world.
Yes. Oh, that was wonderful. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
You should figure out how to put that in one of your Instagram things, and I'll share it to everybody because I always do.
It's one of the chapters in my book, I think.
Okay, good.
it is, I know. Yeah.
And what I found, conversely, because I was so on guard all the time, afraid of what would happen if I made a commitment, that I would lose myself, or I would have a controlling person in my life, or I would make big wrong decisions, that when I really stood in the power of my femininity, none of that happened. None of that happened.
Right.
Oh my gosh. It was eye-opening. I was like, holy my Jesus, I couldn't believe that when I stood in my power and said, my femininity, when I know that I'm enough and I'm going to attract the right person, and that my purpose in the world is, at that point I had my event management company, and it made me even more relaxed with my clients and more relaxed at my events because I felt just in more of a flow. When I took that wall down and I thought, oh, I need the wall because it's going to protect me from the wrong people. When I was in my flow, they just like Tai Chi, they went by. They just went by. Oh, yeah. They didn't stick around anymore. So that's the thing, that we think we're being powerful when we've got up all those guards, and it's really sapping a lot of our power. That when we stand in what is our joy, what is our purpose? I love that word, because what is our purpose in our life, in our community, in our greater community, in the world? What's our purpose? It's a very powerful place to come from. And it's very attractive to other people, both same-sex people and opposite-sex people, don't you think?
Well, that's the thing, is because when you have your purpose clear, then there's no neediness that comes forward. Because now for men especially, because we are more linear, single focus, one thing at a time focus. When we're clear about what our purpose is, our passion and focus goes on that so strongly that a relationship is not such a thing that we can actually become addicted to.
No.
And that's the thing I know in my past relationships before I started doing this work. I would become so, I hate to say it, smothering in my relationship, because I was like, she was so amazing, that was it. And I didn't have anything else to focus my energy on. So, of course, it's like, I can't focus my energy on something out there. She gets all of it, and it's like, too much.
Too much. For either side.
Right. I mean, it can be great in the bedroom for periods of time. However, but in general, the relationship doesn't work too well if you have that smothering energy. So that's why I talk to women about finding a man who's got his purpose in place, always know what he's looking for, know why he's here. Because once he does, he's a good man to be around. And it is definitely more attractive that way.
Yes. And for women, for us to have passions in our life, I have my horse stuff. My horse stuff, I would not give up. I've said it'd be great to meet a man that has horses or likes horses, and it's okay if he doesn't. It's even, I've even dated a guy briefly who was afraid of horses. And the reason we stopped dating didn't have anything to do with that, but he was concerned that he was, I said, no, I have lots of people to go spend horse time with. It'd be fun to have a man join, but I'm going to bring my passion of horses back and talk to you about that. Is that all right? Even though you're afraid of him. He was like, yeah, that was fun. And I think that was a lot of his attraction because I'm so passionate about it.
Yep.
And so I didn't need a man to be part of that I have this very important part of my life that it not only is exercise and community, but I get to give to kids and I get to give to horses. I mean, it satisfies so many parts of me that I don't get 100% focused on giving myself up into this relationship, which I think is a big part of commitment concern for people. Don't you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's the thing is that, again, like the pinnacle of being in a partnership isn't the partnership, it's what's beyond it.
Yeah.
So, because lots of people, and one of the things I was aware of also in my lessons is relationship is not two people facing each other. It's two people side by side facing the world, because then that creates that support system in place. And they said, I mentioned in my work and studying with my teacher, it talks about how man's purpose must come before his relationship. That's actually chapter 7 in The Way of Superior Man by David Data, one of my favorite books.
Oh, I love him.
And on top of that, though, is I realized, having been on the spiritual path for many years too, is that for me, now I realize that relationship comes third, because it's purpose before that, and then it's spirit before that. So a man's connection to his spirit, whatever you want to call that, ultimately comes first, because that's his most permanent relationship of all, ideally for lifetimes and beyond. So relationship with spirit first, then relationship with the work in the world, whatever that purpose, gift, service is, mission, calling, then relationship then fits into that, because neither of those two priorities have to be put on your partner, which is not their job. So that's where the freedom happens and the opportunity to have a healthy relationship happens, because the relationship can then be totally about the relationship, and she can be enjoying that. And as you said, it's like when a man's on the purpose, and I saw some friends of mine about this, it's like, if you had a look at two men, a man who has clarity and direction and focus in his life, what he's up to, compared with a man who's kind of uncertain, wishy-washy, which I was for a long time, looking for a partner to make me feel whole, which is a whole issue about codependency I could talk about for hours as well. Is the fact is that because we have clarity about what we're about and why we're here, and purpose is more attractive because we're not in a place where that relationship is somehow going to make us feel complete. You complete me is a baloney statement. I mean, polite.
So right. Oh yes.
Exactly.
And love means you never have to say sorry, even though I grew up with that movie. It's such false narrative.
Absolutely.
And the other part that you talked about is the standing side by side. If you both know this, what your purpose in the world is, that there's some sort of something higher power, at least in my world, that's important to me, and you both have a purpose, the power that you have together that you bring to the relationship is, I'd never experienced it before till my late husband. I mean, I read stories and thought it was out there and had glimmers. And then I was like, oh, I am never having less than this, because that is amazing.
It raises it so much higher.
And you have to do your work to get that.
Absolutely.
If you're not getting it, if you keep having people that you don't want to commit to, or they don't want to make a commitment, it's because one or both of you has not solidified this part in your life. And there's things in the way. You know, it's like tuning the radio station. You're just a little off. You're in the static part, right?
Absolutely. And that's the thing also, is having a relationship with spirit and having a clarity, direction of what you're meaning for what your life's about. That is commitment to yourself. And so again, you've got a commitment to yourself, which makes makes it more easy for you to commit to somebody else, because and the key thing is, when you're clear about what that is for you, that person will never take it away from you.
No, because they can't, no matter what happens. And you have a track record. That's the thing too. You want to have your own track record of feeling successful that you can share with the other person, and you want to hear their track record. How have they done their journey? We've all screwed up and we've all had hard things, and I'm okay with that, because it's made me who I am now. And I wouldn't have learned what I did. I wouldn't be able to come from a place of experience with my clients if I hadn't had my challenges and my falling down and getting back up again. That's what I want to hear. I want to hear the journey. I want to hear the journey from the people that come into my life. Because when we talk about your journey, then we see, oh, well, there's your strengths. You just didn't know how to use it a different way. And yes, this is where it's kind of gotten in your way, because your strength can be a really hard thing if you don't know how to use it. You can use it against yourself or against other people. That's pretty sad. And that's a lot of times when people have trouble with commitment, that they're using their power in a way that doesn't serve them. Yeah.
One more piece that came up for me is, I know that there are people out there who are going to say, but I'm commitment phobic. I've been burnt so many times before, and how do I help you? And it's like, I realize we may not cover it exactly. Is the thing about this is if you've had, or if you've been burnt too many times in past relationships, so you're commitment phobic, that's a different topic. Yeah. Which is the choices you're making. Yeah. And so the question then is, how do you want to shift your choices? Because the commitment fear isn't about fear of commitment. It's about committing to the wrong thing.
Over and over.
Over and over. So then the question comes up is, okay, so if you're getting the same thing again and again, what are you not choosing? What are you choosing that keeps giving you about the same habit? And we talked about that before, another topic, in other times, in other shows. But that's the question to ask yourself. Again, a lot of stuff we're offering here is questions you can ask yourself is, what is it you're choosing when you keep choosing the wrong thing, so to speak? And
why? Why do you keep choosing that?
Yes.
There's always a reason, really good reason.
And one of us can help you figure that out.
Yes. People are saying, oh, there can't be a good reason. It's always a really valid reason. Sometime it made sense to do it that way.
Right. That's the key. Sometime, because that may not be a reason that you understand as an adult, but it may be a reason you made as a child. And that's why the work goes deeper. Yes. Often. Yes.
More times than not. And when you get to that place, you're like, oh, and then that's how I forgave myself. I was like, I couldn't have done that any other way.
Exactly. You did the best you could with what you knew at the time. That simple.
Yeah. So like, okay, get off my case. Really. Because that's the thing. You think you're just going to get all over your case. No. So good for you for figuring that out.
Absolutely.
You might not be here. People have made different choices when they've had similar things happen. And they're not here anymore because of the choice they made. And I decided I was going to stay here, and this is the choice I made to stay here. Now it's not serving me as an adult. I'm going to make different choices. And I did.
Absolutely. That's the freedom.
I know. Isn't that the best? That's one of the best parts about being an adult, even though I think, oh, yeah, it'd be good to go back and talk to those people, but I don't want to go back.
And the bottom line is, ultimately, those are memories inside of us. They're not to the other person. The other person may not be aware that you did it back then. So going back to remind them seems pointless. So the best thing to do is to do the work inside yourself with that version of them that you're carrying inside of you. Yes. Because that's the part you can change, and you have the power to change it anytime you want.
And one other thing I want to make sure we say is, it's never too late.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter your bad experiences. It doesn't matter how many times you've not made a commitment, or you've met people that don't make it. It all can be changed. Yeah. Really. You could make a decision today. I want it to be different.
If you're still breathing, there's still time.
Always. Yes. That's really true. If you woke up today, which some people didn't.
Well, they weren't watching the show then. They didn't wake up today.
So if you're watching the show and you really are tired of it being this way, give one of us a call. And
There you
now
go.
he's telling us we need to get off. So I'll tell you how you could get a hold of me, and Barry will tell you how you could get a hold of him.
In time, yes.
Make it very easy. So for me, the best way to get a hold of me is to go to my website, www.theperfectcatch.com. Click on the banner at the top that says, "What's holding you back from love?" Let's get to the bottom of that. And we can have a great complimentary conversation about that and just see, wow, what is it? What's the thing that's gotten in your face? And you can also send me an email, Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And you can reach me on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest and YouTube.
There
Did I
you
get them all?
go. I think you did.
I've really been working on it.
I got to my list in my head.
And Barry, please tell people how they can get a hold of you.
Certainly. So my site's pretty easy because my site is my name, barryselby.com. I always mention if you want to reach out and have a conversation with me, and I'll just give you a straight link, is barryselby.com/chat, which if you go on my website, it's the first icon in the navigation bar. And that's where you can fill out a form, schedule a time, and we can talk. My gift to you to see where you are and what you're looking for, and if I can help you. That simple. On my website is a bunch of other wonderful things. My book, my signature program, coaching, my codependency talks I did. There's a bunch of videos you can watch on codependency. And you can also find me on social media. As Christine mentioned, I've done a lot of solo talks. That's on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Barry. So there'll be plenty of talks out there, especially under my Messages from the Masculine playlist, which is 1,000 talks I've done. Yes, 1,000 solo talks.
Wow.
I spirit with me, let's just say that. I was on a mission.
Send him to my house. I need him at my house.
It could be everywhere at once, no problem. And on Facebook is Barry Selby, the author. On Instagram, it's the real Barry Selby. Then everywhere else is just Barry Selby. So Pinterest, Twitter, LinkedIn, etc. is all Barry Selby. So you can find me there.
Perfect.
It's easy.
Well, it's a delight as always. And we are very good at making commitments to be here every Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific time and 4 o'clock Eastern time. And we hope that you'll make a commitment to come and listen to us again next week.
It'd be a whole other topic. And that was a great way of tying it in.
Thank you very much. I'm working on it.
We'll see you next week.
Until next week.
Bye.